Conversations across time, 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 conversations across time.
Good evening and welcome once again to Conversations Across Time. As you know, last week when we left, we were having a conversation about trust and betrayal and applying it to the lessons that we've learned from history and things that are still going on. And after we finished that show, Mark brought up a very interesting point. And of course, this is Mark Hoffman, the show historian, and everyone knows who he is. I'm so sorry that I didn't introduce him. I just assume you know who he is. And Mark, you brought up a very interesting thought, and that is actual betrayal versus perceived betrayal, and how it applies to what's going on today.
Yeah, because who really betrayed the German people? Was it the people that Hitler blamed the betrayal on, the Jews, the communists that stabbed them on the back? Or was it the politicians and the people at the Versailles Treaty who actually, who's betraying the American people now? It's not the black ghetto kid that smokes a joint, gets arrested and goes to prison. He's not betraying the American people. It's the bankers, the politicians. Yet it's easy to blame the Mexicans, the Muslims, the other, and I think you had mentioned when we were discussing this earlier about the tribalism and what Dr. Adler said about the others.
Intelligence can be very separate from humanism. I mean,
yes.
And once you, I saw somebody came back from a concentration camp and how could you treat humans this way? And the answer is very simple. You can't treat humans this way, but you can treat cockroaches this way, right?
Right.
So once you convince your group that the out group are cockroaches, it doesn't hurt your conscience to step on them.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
It's your job to step on them.
Exactly.
You get praised for stepping on them.
But isn't that also what we see with the inclination to define our current president as something other than?
Yes, yes.
Wasn't that fascinating?
Yeah, and that's part of the problem.
Yes.
Part of the problem, excuse me,
Yes.
is tribalism, and it evolves into nationalism, and it's us versus them and the other. And, you know, Trump's been involved with that from day one because he started.
Once he said he was going to run for president, that's what we've heard from him.
Yeah, but even before that, when he brought up the birther issue.
Oh, that's right.
And when he brought
Making
up
the president an other.
The other.
Made him
Exactly.
an
He's
other.
not one of us. He's not part
That's
of,
right.
quote unquote, our tribe. He's part of the other people. He's
Yes.
a Kenyan, and he did that whole birth certificate thing. And I mean, how insulting is it because people listen to that? I don't even want to use the word, but anyway, that the President of the United States has to literally show his birth certificate
Prove that
to
he was born in the United States.
prove he's born in the United States, because this demagogue is yelling he's not one of us, and it appeals to the tribalism of the
Because I was
culture.
getting ready to say, this demagogue, and here he's being followed by all of these people who are buying into this madness. There's that, and there's also the notion, it's coded. It's coded racism. And Hitler was able to use it against the gypsies.
Dog whistles.
Yeah, right? Use it against the gypsies.
The
Homosexuals.
You could take it right out. He attacked homosexuals, the far right. And the thing most people don't know, some of the early top Nazi figures were all homosexuals.
But
The brown shirts, Ernst Röhm, they were all homosexuals. Hitler used them, and then as soon as he got the power, he killed them.
yes,
He
yes.
killed them.
And see, that's a little known historical fact when people talk about Hitler, because what he did to the Jews, there's no question, was horrible. they don't understand that that was just the beginning. If Hitler had continued, it wasn't going to stop with the Jews. It wasn't going to stop with the gypsies. And probably you'd get to the point where people who were left-handed.
Religion is being a social animal. There's something more important than my life,
Yes.
my family, my life.
And we did a show a while back because we were looking at, well, actually the person that we had on was a good German.
The economy was devastated, and Hitler, we were so happy that he did come into our lives because he did improve the economy, and he brought us out of the abscess, the abyss. And he built roads, and he was able to rebuild the military. Now, my husband was in the military. He was away for a while, and then he finally came back. And we were very pleased because he got his command back. The roads, as I said, were built. Now we had the Autobahn. And we had, the people were able to travel. We had new roads. And the factories were being built. And in the factories, the German engineers came into the factories and they built the Volkswagen. The Volkswagen, which was a people's car. Volks meaning people, wagon meaning car. Hitler wanted everyone to have a Volkswagen, to have a car.
Now, may I just interrupt, because what's so
However, we had a Mercedes.
well, you were an aristocrat, and that's what I was going to ask. What was so interesting about that when we talk about the Volkswagen? Because we know in this country, one of the turning points in our history had to do with the Model T Ford, because Henry Ford all of a sudden said everyone should have a car, and a car was for common people. So comparable to the Model T Ford was the Volkswagen in Germany.
Yes.
So that ordinary Germans had a car. What other things did they have as a result of this madman coming to power? And I recognize he didn't seem like a madman at the time in the beginning. So some of the other depressing things that were happening in Germany after World War I, after President Wilson's treaty, what was the economy like?
The economy was it had collapsed. The mark was 130 million to 1. But he really improved our economy. We were so happy, we were so pleased because of that. And he bought factories. And in the factories, there was war productions. And he was able to, he built bridges, he built roads, he restored the coal mines, and then he put our people back to work. Our people were involved in working now they were employed. 6 million people had been out of work, and these people were now gainfully employed. They began to feel very good about themselves. They had self-esteem. The unemployment was lower, and the economy was now being stimulated. I could see this around me. The people were becoming happier, with their existence.
I mean, so many things to define us versus them.
That's what bothers me that's going on now. Now, Trump already attacked Muslims, Mexicans. Mm-hmm. And he didn't denounce the Ku Klux Klan, so we know where he stands
Yes.
versus African Americans.
Yes, precisely.
He made a speech before a Jewish group, and he used every Jewish stereotype. He said, you guys know about money, and all that stuff.
How insulting. How insulting.
He used every Jewish stereotype. So any group that thinks they're not subject to maybe Trump's crackdown if he becomes president is fooling themselves. Just like
Yes.
people, there were German Jews who were wealthy, thought, well, he won't touch us. We've been Germans our whole life, and these guys mean what they say. And the one thing I say about Trump, he's not stupid. That doesn't make him moral. In fact, I think Dr. King had said one time about, I read a quote from Dr. King about, just because you're smart doesn't make you moral.
That's right.
So he's a very, very smart guy, but he's totally immoral or amoral.
That's and the interesting thing when you talk about in the beginning, and that's how I feel about these people that are not understanding Donald Trump, especially for me as an African American person. There were two women who last week were on. I just saw it on CNN. quite frankly. And I was so disturbed that I sat down and wrote a letter that why would a respected news organization have these people on it? You know what they were? They were Trump supporters, 2 African American women. But what it actually was it was fostering an image, because these 2, bless their hearts, these two misguided women did not understand that they were being used. Trump feeds into that, and he gets, what's sad to me is he gets black people to further advance that notion. And with that being said, I was surprised to learn recently how the Rothschilds actually felt that Hitler was a good thing.
Yeah.
Early on, the Rothschilds, and we talk about Jews with money and how they bought into Hitler.
Well,
Churchill bought into Hitler.
All the capitalists did, and want the strategy, and we'll get back to betrayal. The strategy was drive Hitler to the east and force him to go to war with communist Russia.
Yes.
And now we will destroy the evil, because they hated Bolshevikism more than they hated Nazism.
Capitalism, of course.
But the betrayal, Stalin said, I can't trust these guys. They're going to betray me. So Stalin said, screw you. And he signed the non-aggression pact with Hitler in 1939. And their strategy went out the window. But that was their strategy. So there were many Jews that supported Hitler because they had money. And they said, I'd rather have Hitler than communists. Where do I have to share my wealth? I might have to give something to the poor people. And we hear the same thing now. And one of the problems with the politics now is, even though they only use the word democratic socialism, the dog whistle is he's really a communist.
Exactly. That's
He's
exactly
really
that's exactly what they're trying.
Yeah, Bernie's really a communist.
Yeah. And what we are seeing is a betrayal of the American people. But of course,
absolutely. And the thing is, the people who are the betrayers don't realize that down the road they can be betrayed too, and that's the interesting psychological thing. They do not, just like the rich Jews supported Hitler, they didn't realize that Hitler could betray them just as they betrayed their own people.
And how about the German people who thought that they could control Hitler?
Yes.
They thought that they could control him. And I believe somewhere in the dark regions of the minds of the folk who are orchestrating this Trump rise, because look at how many Republicans are coming out and supporting Donald Trump. Now, they see him as the inevitable winner.
The ones that so far that I have seen, first of all, Christie's, to me.
He's a Wall Street guy, so what we expect. But
Jeff Sessions, Senator Sessions, is the biggest racist in the Congress. so I don't expect anything. I mean, he's Strom Thurmond reincarnated.
Yes.
So, I mean, I don't expect anything. I mean, he would support Hitler. If Hitler was running Jeff Sessions, I'm for Hitler, right.
Tribalism.
Yes.
Isn't that an example of exactly what Dr. Adler was talking about, tribalism?
And the people, and the very people that they're using, they will betray those people.
Yes.
They will betray them, and the one thing I never could understand psychologically in history is why people don't understand their own self-interest. There's a book out called Why Poor People Are Republicans. I don't understand it. Why the poor whites in the South put on those gray uniforms and fought for slavery. I do not understand the psychology of that.
What about the Tea Party people?
Yeah, that's exactly.
The Tea Party people who are out there wanting to privatize Social Security. You know, you pan the audience and you look at all these people with white hair in the audience, and they're listening and they're following the Tea Party values, and they are on Social Security. Don't they understand this is about them? It's so amazing to me, and I think we could talk for a very long time about trust and betrayal and misplaced trust. But what we see happening right now in this country are so many people. What did our associate producer call them? They're like the Pied Piper. They're just following along, listening to the music, and not understanding what's going to happen.
And when people feel betrayed, they have to move in a different direction. And we did a show where we had Ishmael and Theodor Herzl on, and Herzl's whole rationale for Zionism is he felt betrayed by the French people in the Dreyfus affair because of the anti-Semitism. So then you get all these movements where some people say, if I'm betrayed, I have to do something because I'm going to continue to be betrayed by the same people.
Hence Zionism.
Yes.
Hence Zionism. I would, and we're going to just look at some of that footage from that show, because what was particularly interesting about the Theodore Herzl is that he was looking for a safe homeland for Jews.
My idea partially, but my idea stemmed from the fact that I believe that the Jewish people living in other national countries would never be treated equally. They would never, even though they were assimilated, would never be treated as first-class citizens. And that no matter what happened, and no matter how assimilated the Jewish people were in these countries, there would always be a second-class status. And I came to that conclusion personally in my life when I was not admitted to a fraternity because of my being Jewish, and it was heightened by the Dreyfus affair in France, a country that was supposedly very enlightened and very liberal, and yet Alfred Dreyfus was accused of being a spy, and mainly because of the anti-Semitism in the French Republic. So it became clear to me that the Jewish people needed a homeland, a place of refuge, a place where they could be and practice their own culture, their own religion without any discrimination, because they would never be accepted in other countries.
But he never talked about a political.
Right.
He didn't think about like what we see now. I think he would be stunned if he were alive today to witness what has happened with his idea of a safe homeland for Jews.
But you know, if the Dreyfus affair didn't happen, he would have been, you know, happy to live in France, and you know, and
because France was considered the most liberal place and the most receptive place for Jews.
And now we have anti-Semitism rampant in France again. So.
Yes, yes. I hope that you will enjoy the inserts from our previous shows and get an understanding of what it is that we try to do here at Conversations Across Time. We don't want to tell you how to think. We just want to make sure you are thinking. And that's what we do. We need to come back and talk about Thomas Jefferson, because here is someone, and you know, we did have him as a guest.
That's true, yeah.
You know, Dostoevsky, who you played several times, talked about the fact that of people speaking with a forked tongue. Yeah. And so Thomas Jefferson was probably a premier example of speaking with a forked tongue. President Jefferson, you authored the seminal document, the founding document of the United States in terms of its Declaration of Independence from Great Britain.
That is correct.
It's believed that you actually advocated for the abolition of slavery. Now, could you tell us why that language did not make it into the document itself?
It was in the original draft. However, there were many discussions in Congress. Now, I had written the original draft in June of 1776. And, of course, in July, we went into discussions over it, and it was open for debate. And to make a long story short, at least 400 words were eliminated from the document, including, as I'm sure you're well aware, the anti-slavery clause. Now, Dr. Franklin and I got into some heated discussions among other congressmen in Congress.
Now, may I just ask this? When you said that you and Dr. Franklin got into heated discussions, Dr. Franklin, interestingly enough, was a Quaker from Philadelphia.
And he also founded the first anti-slavery society in this continent.
And you, as a Southerner from Virginia, and that the fact that the two of you got together on language is interesting.
It is. I mean, Dr. Franklin and I could see eye to eye in many aspects, one of which, of course, the main one was independence. Now, Dr. Franklin was under a lot of pressure from the northern states, whereas I was under pressure, being a Southerner, from the southern states. Northerners were very much against slavery in this country. But in the South, as was argued by many of the Southern representatives, slavery was a mainstay of the economy. And the North, industry was a mainstay of the economy, mostly immigrant and migrant workers and native-born Americans. But in the South, things were different.
I find it interesting because you also owned slaves. I understand that you wanted the abolition of slavery, but slaves were property. So would not the abolition of slavery have meant a sizable impact on your finances?
It would have indeed. Bear in mind that many of my slaves I did not purchase at first. Many of my slaves were inherited, both from an inheritance of my own family, as well as my wife Martha. She also inherited many slaves. So there's a lot of responsibilities to be taken care of, both in the keeping of the slaves and also the maintaining of the farms.
So, I understand that you inherited those slaves, or at least your wife inherited those slaves. But it seems to me that there should have been some question that you pursued even more than the fact that you owned slaves and you inherited these slaves through your wife. I mean, for instance, what kinds of things did you do for your slaves?
They had to be kept, they had to be cared for, and so forth.
Like horses. I hope you enjoyed that clip with Thomas Jefferson, because, you know, he was someone that was one of the founding fathers of this country. So talk about betrayal and duplicity, this is a perfect example of that.
Maybe we'd have to do a lot of research to find people in political life that haven't betrayed someone.
I think you're right.
We'd have to do deep research.
I think you're right, because
maybe Mother Teresa.
Maybe Mother Teresa, just maybe. Now, if you recall, when you were portraying Dostoevsky,
yeah.
one of the panel members was Hussein bin Ali.
Yeah.
What do you think this world would look like today if, in fact, he had not been betrayed?
Yeah, that's one of the all-time betrayals. I think if I had to rank betrayals, it would be Judas to Jesus is the all-time betrayal.
Okay, yes.
And believe it or not, the one I would rank next is the British and the French in Munich betraying the Czechs at the.
Yes.
And this might be the third, because if they had lived up to their bargain, and even
and the bargain being the Balfour
that they would
Agreement.
have their own caliphate,
yes,
and he would have brought the Shiites and the Sunnis together.
And we would not have that Middle Eastern disturbance.
We might not have the problems in the Middle East that we have today. And Lawrence knew that because he went to Versailles after they started to renege on the agreement,
yes,
and he pleaded with them.
Yes.
He even wanted to compromise, give them a little less, but give them something, and they ignored him. And so, number one, they betrayed him. Number two, the Middle East could be different.
Yes.
Number three, we lost all trust with Arabs. We betrayed, at the same time we betrayed the Kurds, then we betrayed the Kurds again.
Yes.
We promised them if they revolted against Hussein, we would back them. Hussein killed about 80,000 of them with poison gas, and we did nothing.
Did nothing.
So why would we expect the people in the Middle East to trust us when we betrayed them so much? And the Middle East would be far different if there was a caliphate. But the Western powers didn't want that, because a strong Arab presence in the Middle East would have threatened
oil.
And that's the four-letter word that has three letters.
Yes, you're correct. And if you recall, on one of our previous shows, we talked about how the duly elected Prime Minister of Iran was overthrown and it was a coup that was engineered by the Dulles brothers, done under the watch, or done under the presidency of Dwight Eisenhower, who, you know, I'm not so clear if he was so innocent in this. But he certainly had to know that what he was allowing to happen with the Dulles brothers was going to certainly do away with a democratically elected prime minister. Iran had entered a deal with British Petroleum, which essentially said all of the oil in Iran belongs to British Petroleum. I'm just saying, you occupied a very, very dangerous position that today I would think you and your brother would at least be brought up on charges of.
Well, we weren't, so.
No, you weren't,
apparently,
because you controlled the press. You were very good friends with Henry Luce, who was the editor of Time. He put your brother on the cover of Time.
Before the internet, so people did not get the facts. But here you're sitting next to a gentleman who was promised something.
Gentleman?
Who was promised something for risking his life and his people to participate in
A chief
the war.
of barbarian tribe, dozens of them in the Middle
and
East.
who was kicked to the curb, and look what's happened.
The fact is that these Western demagogues are terrified of what would happen if any one group of people different from them were to actually unite. They fought it actively in Southeast Asia, in the entirety of Asia. It's the foundation for the principle of the Red Menace. Yes.
Which was very real in Russia, Romania, East Germany. It was very real, madam.
It's the foundation for all of colonialism. This is not new information.
Exploiting people in trade and making the colonial power richer.
It's the entire 20th century.
But it's the world resource. We always go, at least for me, I always find myself talking about oil. Because in 1905, when Winston Churchill realized that oil would be an important commodity, and as Secretary of the Admiralty in Great Britain, he changed the energy source used to power the British Navy from coal to oil. So oil became very central to what it is that happened in world politics. And I don't think that that's very well known. I think it's something that's been obscured. And so when you say that we were attacking Secretary Dulles, I guess I'm still searching for some seed of acknowledgement, at least.
Well, we certainly, people in the United States and Western Europe, live a charmed life compared to most of the rest of the people in the world. And part of that is because we have been able to exploit the rest of the people in the world, take their resources and use them as market for, they provide the raw material and then we sell it back to them. And in both transactions, it helps the United States and Western Europe.
And he was replaced with a puppet of the West. And this was all because the Dulles brothers, and not only the Dulles brothers, but a lot of people that were in high positions in this country owned stock in British Petroleum.
I don't want to sound Marxist, even though I play Karl Marx,
yes.
But don't ever let democracy get in the way of economic interest of the United States.
Yes, you're right. You're exactly right. You know, they talk about the oil prices are low right now in this country, and they're saying that's going to impact the election. Yeah. So, and it is, and it will.
The one thing, and I don't want to, blow smoke at, but some of the guests you have on your show, when we have the panels,
yes,
are so relevant today because we spent a lot of time talking about Trump. But we had a panel where I portrayed Karl Marx, but the other guest was Roy Cohn. And Roy Cohn was Donald Trump's mentor as a young man. So it all ties in together.
Yes, absolutely. And you're right. We have fun with history, but we do hope, we're having fun, but we hope that the audience is taking this seriously as we are, because we know, as you said, Roy Cohn, and maybe we'll bring Roy Cohn back, because he was such an influence on Donald Trump. And Roy Cohn, as those of you know, was very much a part of the witch hunt that happened in this country under the leadership of Senator Joseph McCarthy in the 1950s, and how people were terrorized. Are you now, or have you ever been, a member of the Communist Party? And that was about nothing other than Roy Cohn wanting to have free run, and he and Dulles and that whole group of people, they have always run this country for their own interests. And how it is that...
And that's the ultimate betrayal.
That's the ultimate betrayal. Because somehow within it's coded in the DNA of citizens of this country that we have free will. We do not. We are manipulated.
Conversations across time, conversations across time. Conversations across time, 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 conversations across time. Conversations across time, conversations across time. Conversations across time, conversations across time, conversations across time.